And I actually saw on iTunes, it's the Jim Cummings that voices Winnie the Pooh is shown on there. Oh my God. I was like, that is so perfect for this film. It's like, it's almost like you did it on purpose to troll the audience in a way. It's
funny, when we won Sundance, a lot of the articles were like Jim Cummings and it's like all these pictures of like the Winnie the Pooh voice actor with like these like blondes out on the red carpet. It's like this 65-year-old dude. And it's like, we didn't correct it. It was like, all right, whatever. Let's keep it up.
Welcome to the Film Riot Podcast. I'm Ryan Conley, and today on the show, we have Jim Cummings. And I'm really excited to have Jim on the show to go through his process, how he goes about making film in this industry, because he does it a very different way. He does it himself. He just goes out there and makes it happen. He wrote and directed Thunder Road, which originally was a short film that he then turned into a feature. And of course, we're going to get into all of that, but it's his thought process behind making the films that he does that inspires me so much. He's really like, paving the way for how us filmmakers could just go out there and make our films and keep control over the entire process from front to back. And that is a really exciting thing. But since Thunder Road, he's made 2 other films, both which he also wrote and directed, The Werewolf and Beta Test. We're going to talk a little bit more about that as well. But before we get into all of that, I do want to thank today's sponsor. And today's sponsor is Musicbed. And Musicbed currently has a new series called YouTube Masters on their YouTube channel. It's an educational series led by creators for creators. Each episode features different YouTube professionals like Yes Theory, Colin plus Samir, and myself, equipping you with tools to use in improving your own channel. Their latest episode does feature me, and it's all about things that I wish I told myself when I was first starting Film Riot 11 years ago. Everything from establishing why you're creating something to planning your content out to the bottom line. It is really, really hard to create, build, and maintain a YouTube channel. It's something that people don't really talk a lot about, and I do dive into all that. You can watch the entire episode and the link in the show notes. And of course, if you go to filmriot.com/podcast, find the episode page for this episode, and we'll have more links for you there. And of course, you can subscribe to Musicbed's YouTube channel to find more about that, watch all their episodes, and get notified when they put up more episodes as well. Another thing I wanted to let you guys know about, which is not a sponsor, but Warner Brothers did reach out to me to tell me about this Filmmaker series that they're doing, and it sounds pretty amazing. So I wanted to let you all know that it's starting on the 15th of this month, where it goes behind the scenes and it follows the journey of some of modern cinema's most celebrated directors, including Kubrick, Scorsese, and Eastwood. Again, it's starting on September 15th, and you're going to be able to find that on youtube.com/Warner Brothers Online. The first episode is about Stanley Kubrick. They're going to be streaming Stanley Kubrick, A Life in Pictures, which is a doc all about him, narrated by Tom Cruise. Then on Wednesday, they got George Miller. Thursday is Martin Scorsese, Friday is Clint Eastwood, and Saturday is Frank Darabont. There's going to be amazing filmmakers talking about these amazing filmmakers with a lot of really great behind-the-scenes info. So I'm extremely excited about this. They start at 5 p.m. PST, so make sure you jump over to youtube.com/Warner Brothers Online and subscribe to that so you don't miss out on it. I know I'll be watching for sure. But now, with all of that said, let's jump into it with Jim. Just to start out, I'd really love to start where I always started, and it's kind of where you got your start, and not necessarily, what made you want to be a filmmaker, but I guess, yeah. What was that one thing that really kind of put it into your head of this is what I want to do? And was it writing and directing at first?
No. So I wanted to make movies since I was a kid. I'm sure like most filmmakers, I loved watching movies, and I was like making little videos with a mini DV camera that my sister had for like her horse practice stuff. Like when she was jumping horses, we had this like camera to film her. And I was like, all right, well, I'll just like steal this thing and try and recreate the Matrix. And then I did that, until college. I went to Emerson for film and was like shooting stuff on the side with friends. But then I quit after a while. I shot this like 63-minute pseudo feature immediately after graduating that was just abysmal and like didn't really work. And it became my kind of grad school of like learning how to edit and make movies. And after that kind of failure of like editing a movie for a year and a half and it not being very good, I kind of quit directing. I was still like writing stuff on the sides. I was still like writing features that I always wanted to make. And so I was still like aspirationally a filmmaker and had desires of being a filmmaker. But then I was like better at producing at the time than I was directing. And so I just started working with other directors who were doing cool stuff. People like Danny Madden and Tony Ascenda and Patrick Wang. And then like in directing for them, in producing for them, I kind of got an understanding of how to make things. And then I got a job at College Humor. And then the thing that really got me to want to be a filmmaker was watching other people miss opportunities in the comedy space and just watching that happen over and over and over again. And that kind of like anger built up in me and became ambition. And I was like, all right, I'm going to go make movies again. And so then that became the Thunder Road short film, was like just me being frustrated with not having real creative control as a producer. And so I was just like, I'm just going to do a little short film and see how that turns out and really focus on it and put my money where my mouth is, that like short films are all about, making people laugh and making people cry and audience engagement and storytelling, and bet on myself and made that short, and the rest is history.
Yeah. And I remember when that short came out, actually, it was so unique and interesting, and I really dug it. And that makes me wonder, when you did the short, was there an intention for a feature, or was the short just a one-off thing that led to you building it out to a feature?
Yeah, no, the short film was just this like short, weird performance art humiliation pornography thing that I wanted to do, that would just be this like thing that would be funny, that would like make people go, I can't believe they did that. So like in working with Danny as a when I was producing for Danny, we were doing all this like hand-drawn animation, and the goal with hand-drawn animation is to have that effect on people of like, oh my God, look at how much work went into every single frame, and like that's so impressive. And I just wasn't seeing that kind of impressive content in live action short form stuff. And I was like, well, how do you do that? How do you make something that's like impressive in the short form? And so I literally just like wrote this thing that would be very difficult to pull off as an actor and as a film crew. And it's also like funny and heartbreaking. And it's about the police in 2016. It's just like this really difficult endeavor. And I kind of raced at that. But no, I had no aspirations of it being a feature. I knew it was good, but like I didn't think that it would be I didn't think it could be a feature for another year and a half, like after I shot it. And then I had the idea of having the funeral be the opening scene, and then making the movie more about his relationship with his daughter than the one with his mom.
What ended up making you, realize that you wanted to make that feature? What was it about the short film that really pulled at you? Or was it something that was just in the back of your mind, it wouldn't leave you, and you just had to end up telling the story one way or the other? What was it exactly?
Well, I mean, honestly, it's probably just opportunity. Like I had done 6 other single take short films after making Thunder Road for a media company. And then I had these other movies that I was trying to do. I have this movie about the paparazzi, this feature that I wrote and was like very close to getting financed and getting the green light on. And then it all kind of fell through after like 6 to 8 months of just talking about it. And I realized, well, that was just talk. Like, okay. And then, I don't know, I just had like this groundswell of support with Thunder Road, and I like finally cracked the code of how you make that a 90-minute movie. And then after that, I wrote it in like, a couple of days, the first draft, and then started sending it out to producers. Yeah. And then it was just like, all right, I think this might be the thing. Let's just do it. Let's just run a Kickstarter campaign and see if we can do it. And then after the Kickstarter, we were able to like bring in financing from people who saw the Kickstarter but wanted to buy a percentage of the company instead of just like supporting it as a reward. And then we were kind of able to scrap together enough money to make the movie, and then that became the feature. So like, honestly, I'd love to say that it was like, that I focused on it for 2 years and really, tried to make it as perfect as possible before going to shoot. But it was literally just because it was the thing that was the only thing that people were going to trust us with money to go and make. Like, yeah. I hate to say, like, the majority of the movies that get made nowadays, especially at our level, are just that. It's like whoever you can convince to help out, and however many people want to work on the thing, and then that thing gets made. Like, it's a very difficult thing to go from a short film that is like a comedy drama to then go to investors and say, hey, finance my paparazzi horror movie. Like that, for whatever reason, there was a big disconnect of like, well, I don't know if I trust this kid's decision-making faculties, despite the fact that he made a good short.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've personally noticed that it's also like, in the commercial world, you can't do a car commercial, direct a car commercial unless you've directed a car commercial. I've kind of found that, like, I just did a short film called There Comes a Knocking, but I did it because we're taking out a horror feature script, and I hadn't done horror since 2012. And they're like, nobody's going to give this a shot unless you can show you can do horror. And it's like, all right, well, fair enough.
Yep.
But it's also funny because like what you're saying, I totally relate to too. There's like the thing that you want to make most and the thing you can make. But I've always found that you can also make the thing that you can make the thing you really want to make, which sounds like what is exactly what you did with Thunder Road, which I think is incredibly smart to kind of, pivot the way that you did and get something going, which has led to 2 other films, right? That you've written and directed since Thunder Road. So how long since Thunder Road has it been since you then went off and made another 2 features?
Yeah, it's a bit crazy. So we shot the feature of Thunder Road in November of 2017. And then we were in talks for TV stuff with different productions. And then all of that falls through because you've never done a TV show before. That same kind of stuff, same, different medium, same kind of stuff. And then I was just writing these other things on the side. I'd written this werewolf movie, and we had talked to a couple of different like big platforms and studios. But then as soon as we won South by Southwest with the feature, we had the same people who turned us down for that movie coming back and be like, hey, tell me about this werewolf movie again. Like, well, is that going to take off? It has nothing to do with the quality of the script. Yeah. It has entirely to do with your value as like a candidate for, people's attention, or their attention, I guess, as executives.
Yeah. It's like riding that heat.
Yeah, it's really weird. It's like a derivatives market. It's not really like it has anything to do with the product. It's Hollywood is very strange. So we made that movie, The Werewolf, in Utah in March of 2019, and then we spent that summer editing it and delivering it to the studio. And then while we were doing that, I realized that we had this movie that we really wanted to make about Hollywood. And so I was like, well, why don't we just try and do a crowd equity campaign in the same way that we did with the Kickstarter campaign for Thunder Road, but we'll sell off shares to the internet to anybody around the world who wants to join our company. And so we ran a WeFunder campaign, which is a crowd equity platform, and started the LLC, built out the page. And then very quickly, we're able to raise almost twice as much money as the budget of Thunder Road from just people who wanted to help out, like people who had seen our previous work. And then that became our new movie, The Beta Test. And so PJ McCabe and I co-wrote that over, probably a year. It took forever to get the research right. And then we started shooting November. So November of 2019. And then I'm literally on the computer in my little closet that is now an editing suite, editing that film and trying to deliver it sometime soon.
That is incredible. It reminds me of the whole Mark Duplass talk, the cavalry's not coming,
It's so true.
I just love that you're just doing it. If somebody's not going to, hand it to you, you're just doing it yourself. And I really love and respect that. It's such an inspiring thing. And to jump back to Thunder Road, I want to get to the other 2 films as well, but I really just kind of want to talk about your process as a writer and director overall. But I am curious about how you distributed Thunder Road. You did that. That was a self-distribution method, right? Yeah.
So it was like the same producers that made the movie ended up coming in and redistributing the film with me. So like we got a grant from Sundance, part of their creative distribution fellowship, for $33,000. And we had that kind of on the back burner, that we knew that was going to be a possibility. And Sundance was cool with it. They were like, we accept the film, but also if you get reached out to by A24 or Netflix and there's a big, check that they want to give you, we understand if you guys want to pass on it. But like even after all of the qualifiers of winning awards at some of the biggest film festivals on the planet, it still wouldn't recoup half of the budget of the movie, really. And that's crazy, especially for a super small budget movie. And so we were like, all right, well, let's just do it. Let's put our money where our mouth is and let's just see if you can do it yourself. And then we spent the next year and a half, or maybe year, distributing that film with Sundance's help and guidance. And it was a dream. And now, like, we really want to do that for other movies as well.
Was that just you putting it out to like becoming like a sales agent yourself? Did you sell it to markets, or you just putting it on streaming and then you're getting revenue from that?
So a little bit of both. So the Sundance case study should be coming out in the next like month or two, and it goes into much more detail than I could ever go into on this. But like, really, what happened was, as soon as we realized we were going to self-distribute, my buddy Ben Wiesner, who is one of my producers and my manager, kind of became foreign sales for all of us, and now does that professionally. Basically, when he's not producing, he's also able to find homes and territories for all of these different movies. And so we just did that. We kind of impersonated sales agents for our own movies, and it was really easy. Like, and also we didn't have to pay anybody. It was just like going through Rolodex of people to like find, contact information for the people who have distributed 2 A24 movies in Greece. And then it's like, all right, we also like had a premiere at the Athens Film Festival with like sold out shows. Then we reach out to the distributors there and, send them a screener to potentially make an offer. And that's how we got distribution in Greece. And that's just a single territory for a theatrical deal. And then also like in like selling up front to them, I think they also have like for different territories, we'd be giving up like DVD and Blu-ray sales and then streaming sales for those platforms and television. It's like all these different forms of rights that you can sell to different territories around the world. And we just started carving out a map basically in our office and tracking it all online, like on Google spreadsheets. I know it sounds like it's a full-time job, and it was for Ben and Matt and Natalie, but it just felt natural. It was like, okay, well, this is just us still making the movie and not getting screwed over by the system. And yeah, it's funny too, like in distributing the film, we took a deal with Amazon for 2 years in the United States and Canada to be on the streaming platform on Amazon Prime. And that runs out in March of next year. It's out, very soon, I guess, like less than a year. And then we'll be able to go to Netflix or ask Amazon to re-up their subscription. It's like, it's a funny thing where it just becomes a property that you manage and you own, like a building, like you're just like a building manager, and you can rent it out and sell it to different people for the rest of your life.
Yeah. And it sounds like you would have a lot more control over absolutely everything across the board too.
Yeah. Like the trailer and the poster and the final cut.
That's great. That's great. Cause I have a few friends that I've talked to where they were not happy about what went on with the trailer and everything, things that were given away.
Almost everybody. Like, I think that's another thing. Like we take that for granted of like, we don't listen to ourselves of like, nobody is happy with distributors. It's like you give a movie to somebody who's never edited a YouTube video before. And you expect them to put out a cool trailer, or like people who don't know anything about the internet and they're going to design the poster for your movie. Like, it's not even based on like evidence. It's not even based on like what people are more likely to click on iTunes if a poster looks a certain way. It's just like, oh, let's just give it to our buddy who's a poster designer and then charge the filmmakers for it. It's criminal. And like everybody has these experiences and nobody's calling these people out because they're scared. It's like a weird thing. Yeah, you wouldn't let anybody else screw up your movie. Why are we letting these people?
Yeah, especially because of how important those things are, of how much they're framing the expectation of what your film is. So, people are walking in with the expectations based off the marketing for your film. And, sometimes that can, for me at least, I sit down and I'm watching a movie and this is not anything of what I thought it was. And it takes you a minute to shift your expectations to dive back into the movie. So that's something that's always been extremely interesting to me as well, that it's just completely out of the filmmaker's control, this thing that really does prep the audience before they ever sit down.
Yeah, I think in David Fincher's features and TV, he has like last say of all of the marketing, which I think is just brilliant. Of like, it's actually him in the editing room, or like over the shoulder of the editor doing the trailer, and that's cool. It's like the trailer and the poster are part of the art form, like the release of the movie. Like with the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the supplemental DVD or Blu-ray that's in there, it looks like a shitty like DVD -R, and then like somebody's written on it in Sharpie. And that was David being like, okay, well, this is kind of form fit to the movie and it's funny and it'll make people go, wait, what's going on? Like, is this a ripped DVD or something like that? And that's part of the movie. That's like, I don't know. I think all of that stuff is it's all the same, it's every part of the buffalo. You have to kind of engage the audience in every way, and you shouldn't let it up to people who don't know what they're doing.
But I do want to jump into your process, because that's the stuff that really fascinates me most. And I really loved Thunder Road. I thought it was excellent. I thought you were excellent in it. I loved the writing, just everything about it. I really, really dug. I rewatched it last night as well, just to jump in. And I actually saw on iTunes, it's the Jim Cummings that voices Winnie the Pooh is shown on there. Oh my God. I was like, that is so perfect for this film. It's like, it's almost like you did it on purpose to troll the audience in a way,
Well, it's funny, when we won Sundance, a lot of the articles were like Jim Cummings and it's like all these pictures of like the Winnie the Pooh voice actor with like these like blondes out on the red carpet. It's like this 65-year-old dude. And it's like, we didn't correct it. It was like, all right, whatever. Let's keep it up.
The makeup work they did on that film was unbelievable.
Oh, he looked so young. Yeah,
how'd they do that? Was that CJ? Yeah, the entire budget.
Isn't that so funny? Even iTunes, it's like, all right, screw it, whatever. And then imagine, like, think about that. You're going through like the Jim Cummings discography, and it's like, Princess and the Frog. Maybe you'll like Thunder Road, and it's like, no, kids, don't watch that.
Winnie the Pooh and Thunder Road.
Yeah, maybe you like this movie where a cop gets his ass out in the parking lot, kids.
Oh my God. Oh man. Okay. I was saying, okay, so jumping back into it. So your process into getting into writing any of your films, not just Thunder Road, but I mean, talking a little bit specifically about each, but I guess starting with Thunder Road, how did you get your start into that? Like, what do you have a process that kind of translates to every film that you're writing, or does it change a little bit? And if so, what is that?
It depends. So Thunder Road was special because it was always just me. So like in writing the script, or the actual physical writing process of, pen to paper or, keyboard in cell text, like that process was just Jim in a room acting out all the scenes out loud and then making them work. And then I would send them to my producers. Like I sent the script to Zach Parker, who's one of the producers on Thunder Road and a good buddy. And we would have these long form conversations about like screenplay format and how, these things work, of like 3-act structure and maybe like teasing these small things. And like, I had really great resources of people around me who cared a lot about the movie before it was even finish in screenplay format. And so for that movie specifically, it was a lot of like me hanging out in my buddy PJ's basement and like drinking Budweiser and listening to Springsteen albums, and then like doing every scene out loud and acting them out. There's a lot of monologues in the movie. And so like it was very easy when you have 24-hour access to the lead actor to do it out loud 1,000 times and really find the thing that makes it work. And so a lot of it is pretty boring. It's like me just doing it 1,000 times and then finding something that works and then applying that to paper and then going, no, that's kind of stupid, and then doing it again and then finding something that makes it better. It's like, it's a really stupid process. And I felt very lonely in the experience because I wasn't like every other screenwriter where I'd see people in like a coffee shop sitting down with headphones and they're like writing dialogue. And I didn't really work like that, really. Like, I think with most screenwriters, they sit down with an open page and they're writing dialogue, and they can hear the characters in their mind, kind of like how they're reading, and then they write that stuff down. But when I would write like that, it would make it, I would show up on sets for early stuff and it just wouldn't work. It sounds like, the words had never come out of somebody's vocal cords, so it was just cheesy, or like it felt scripted. And so then, I don't know, with the Thunder Road short, I was just doing it in my car on the drives to work out loud with like no paper. I had the voice memo app on my iPhone. Though I had a good idea for a line, I would record it and then like transcribe that when I got home. And it was just this kind of moving art piece that I was doing, like traveling art piece where I was just like, in my car, and then I had the radio so I could play the Springsteen song and mess up the Springsteen song. So that was its own special thing. And then ever since, like I've been working with my good buddy PJ McCabe on other stuff. So we co-wrote the beta test. And then, but it's the same thing. It's like the two of us acting out scenes a whole lot and coming up with dialogue like that. Yeah, I guess short answer, I do it all out loud and then write down the best stuff.
Does that go for, because you did mention structure, and I'm always interested about, how big, because I've noticed everyone sees structure slightly differently. I mean, we all, if we think about structure, it falls into a general 3-act idea, but the specifics of it can be different. I'm always really fascinated about that. So are you thinking about structure at all when you're building out the story beats?
I'm really bad at that. So like I know very little about it. Like I haven't really done a deep dive into what a good screenplay is. Like I know about the inciting incident and like, the hero being like the Joseph Campbell stuff of like the hero being sent on the journey and then like the lowest point being 60 minutes into the 90 minutes and then having this kind of like cathartic resolution with a potential denouement. Like I know that stuff. I think also like if you've seen enough movies, you kind of get that, intrinsically, like you just get it from watching 10,000 movies of like what makes something satisfying to an audience.
Yeah. It's just that film language.
Yeah. So I'm really not the guy to ask about the structure or so. Like I think probably Thunder Road is very well structured. It's like in the first 10 minutes, I realize he pulls away from the daughter pulls away from him after he embarrasses himself at the funeral. And then he looks at her and realizes he has to repair the family. And then that kind of becomes an inciting incident, if that means anything. Of like, although it is all one shot, that becomes him starting the journey of repairing the family. And like, that's what kind of the movie's about. And so it works, but it's just a mannerism. It's like a guy looking at a girl in the back pew of a church. It's not really a big dialogue moment of like, and now I'm getting sent off on this journey. It's So I don't know. I think it is a pretty 3-act structure movie. And most of the stuff that we do, but then also like with a horror movie, it's different. You can kind of suspend that, like the more like tension and suspense that you can create in the opening, like you can withhold anything really happening until halfway through the movie, so long as it's interesting and scary. Like, I think I don't know. The last 2 movies that we've made have been in the horror thriller genre. And so there isn't such strict obedience to structure.
Sure. And that's a great answer. If not, that's what I love about it is some people have said exactly that. I don't think about structure at all. And I think that's really interesting. I love how each process is a little bit different. And I think it's really useful to hear each, especially because, some people, if the structure doesn't make sense to them, hearing someone like yourself who's made such a great film also say like, I don't really think about it too much.
Also, like there are things like, you hear these things among screenwriting. I really despise the craft of screenwriting or like the professionalism. Like I understand that it's a real thing and it's an incredible talent to be able to do that stuff. And it seems like I'm, painting the entire, I'm making fun of entire medium, like sculpture. Like, man, I hate sculpture. But like really, right. For the most part, the vast majority of screenwriters are people who, rely on these things of like, oh, well, the thing that's making my movie not being produced is the fact that I somebody gave me a note and the structure is bad, or the characters aren't likable, or, all of these things that are just really inadequacy traps and have nothing to do with why your movie got a bad review on the blacklist or whatever.
Yes.
Like, so I submitted to the blacklist. I submitted the Thunder Road script and I got 3 reviews. I think it's $75 a piece, or it was when I did it. And I got 2 of the reviews were 3 out of 10s. And this for the shooting script. Now, does that mean that the Thunder Road movie isn't good? No. Or wasn't worth making or needed huge improvements? It didn't. Like, I think that we all end up being trapped in these things that like, oh, you have to focus on these things in order to be taken seriously. And it's made up. It's purposeful. It's purposely making you feel inadequate so that you can deliver a better product to somebody who's going to fuck it up anyway. Like, I don't know. And that's probably why I've kind of avoided a lot of the the literature on professional screenwriting. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I've stayed away from most of them myself. I do think about structure myself, and I do like structure with getting into stuff. But even I talked about recently on a podcast, like I think about it up front, and it helps me kind of get going. And then once it's going, I throw it all out and I don't think about it again.
Yeah,
because I agree with you. That's not what makes the film great. What makes the film great is, you know, the theme and the characters and their arc. And it correct me if I'm wrong, but it's, you know, it seems like there's a lot of instinct involved in what you're doing. I mean, even when you're saying you're just speaking it out loud, you know, that's your instinct in those moments kind of crafting it. And I think that's probably why your film is so human, for lack of a better way to put it, and so engaging in that way and realistic in so many moments. So I definitely relate to that quite a bit.
I wonder if those are like the exception to the rule. Like, and I think that's right. Like, structure does help a great deal. But like looking at something like Uncut Gems, that was my favorite movie of last year. And
me too. Me too.
Okay, good. So if you look at that movie, it's like really, it's just amping itself up until the end. There's no like, it's just anxiety porn of like making the audience feel as tense as possible and then continuing to up that ante like gambling addiction. And I've read articles about how it's like structured like a basketball game, and like in the way that it's broken up, and that it's not necessarily, you know, very, very structured like a screenplay. And I think that's great. Like I maybe that was it. It was just, it kept my interest without maintaining the kind of classical structure that we have. Like if you can create that anxiety in an audience and keep them watching, you've done your job. Like it doesn't really matter, you know, like, and I think especially in the age of the internet, you know, you can break these rules and attack an audience that has a short attention span and win, I guess.
Yeah. It's almost like a pacing to me, you know. It's like, you know, when you're cutting something, it's like, when do you know, cut now to something else? You know, how long can I hold on this shot? Is something interesting happening? Has my audience eyes start to drift? And it almost feels like that to me sometimes. So it's, all right, now we need to shift to something else with the story. Something needs to happen again now. So
I think about it like being a DJ, of like having tempo and kind of nice transitions between songs and keeping people dancing, where it's like, you have an immediate understanding of whether people are enjoying the playlist. And like,
that's great.
I think about that a lot, of like, how long do we hold on this song, or are people gonna kind of fade off of the dance floor? And then it's like, all right, well, no, let's put on this next one, and like transition tastefully.
I love that. I think that's a great way of thinking about it, actually. I agree. Even music, you know, is a huge thing for me with film, because even within a song, you have that pace and that sort of structure, I guess, that I've always kind of thought about. You know, back when I was a kid, I used to just listen to a soundtrack that I was going to use for my, you know, when I was shooting on VHS or whatever. Yeah. And I'd listen to it over and over again. And I think that kind of taught me pace without me knowing it, you know?
Sure.
Anyway, interesting. But also, before you start writing, are you having your sort of main beats built out? Like, you know what your middle is, you know what your end is, or, you know, moments in between before you actually start writing?
Yeah, of course. Like, I'll do extensive treatments of like, I have like the reminders app on my iPhone. I'll plug in ideas for scenes inside of the reminders, and then you can just move the reminders up and down. And so,
nice.
And so that kind of becomes, like strips or something, where you can like move things around. Like, all right, well, I think this scene could be here. I don't know if we move this idea down here. And then that
is the greatest filmmaker life hack I have ever heard.
Well, it's actually, it's fine. You should probably do it in long form, because like the iPhone screen is only so big. So like you have to take multiple screen grabs of it if you want to like print it out. And so it's not the best, but yeah, that's how I did the Thunder Road feature, where I had like extensive ideas inside of my notes app on my phone, and of like funny turns of phrase and hell that we could put this character through. And then so I had an idea of kind of what I knew it was going to be, like an amped up monologue of like public meltdown for the climax. And then at the end of the movie, I knew it had to be dance related, and it had to be something about passing the baton and being a good parent finally, and like having a win for the main character. And then I was like, and what if we do it without dialogue? What if it's just this one quiet moment where you're the audience is in a movie theater watching this guy in a theater surrounded by people laughing and crying at the same time. And like, if that could be this amazing catharsis after watching this dude go through hell for like 85 minutes. And it worked. And like, I knew in telling the story out loud to people that like when we were both crying by the end of it, that it was going to work.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was that tone that you balance throughout the film. I really love, because there's times where you almost don't know whether you like, you know what I mean? I'm like, there's a tear building, but I'm also laughing. I'm like, how are you doing this to me?
Yeah.
So it was a very interesting tone that worked so well. What the parent teacher scene was one of my favorites when he gets up with the desk.
Yeah.
And he's just, dude, I'll check
I'm
this
not
across
hold on
the
this
room.
desk for a minute. Yeah. I'm gonna hum this. I can hum this thing so fast. Yeah.
And then he curses, and then he says the bit about we've been dancing around here for 5 minutes.
I love that, because that says that he knew when he showed up in the evening that it was about her cursing, and then like they were just dancing around. It was just like they're I love that. Like, it's the funny thing of like setting up a social status and then breaking it halfway through a scene is really funny. Yeah,
it was great. And how did you find little things like, slickers, these
that's
slickers over here? Oh, is it really?
Yeah, that's 100% my dad. My dad often, so I have a younger sister and 4 older ones, but my dad would always talk about boys as like, oh, this guy thinks he's real slick. This guy's a slicker. And like, I don't know, it's just such a dumb term. It seems like somebody who's out of touch talking about a guy. And yeah, that was just, and then with Tony, I just wanted to do that, of like paint a picture in the audience's mind of what he's thinking at all times. Like I'm such a fan of Steve Coogan and Alan Partridge and the Gibbons brothers, and what they do with that character. They're able to show off the cogs moving in Alan's mind, and to do that subtly is a joke. It's a wonderful trick. It's a sleight of hand. It's like a magic trick that you can do for the audience of painting an image in their mind without actually showing them. And I just love that. There's a moment in Thunder Road where I'm talking to my daughter about this boy that I saw her with at school, and I say, "Is he a slicker?" And she goes, "I don't know what that is." And I go, "Like, look, honey, you just trust me. They'll hang out with this guy. If you give a mouse a cookie, hey, I love you." And like the phrase "if you give a mouse a cookie" is just painting the image that the main character is thinking that this guy's trying to have sex with his daughter, and that's so funny. And then to interrupt it immediately and to muddle it is just great. Yeah, I don't know. I think that I just love that stuff. I mean, that's the work. That's the writing to me. Like that's the craft. And so it's always that.
And that's what I really appreciated most about Thunder Road. It's one of my favorite things just in film in general. It's just one of my favorite things is the subtleties, the small things, the little like smart, simple reveals of the two things that were huge for me in Thunder Road was the moment in the morning where she says, "Dad, can I talk to you for a second?" Sits down and they do the hand slap game and he nails it. Yeah. And then we turn and he pulls, the drawing of the hands off the wall. And it was just, it's so simple and it's kind of funny, but it's also entirely beautiful at the same time. So it was just such a great character thing. And the other one was when he's fighting with his partner and, the boss yells his name and then you reveal he's taking his gun
out. Cowboy shot. Yeah.
What led to those when did you know that those were moments that needed those reveals? What was the thought process behind? Was it organic or was there a very specific thought process behind those? Because I just thought they were so well executed.
So it's interesting that you talk about it. So like it is interesting. So that is not necessarily writing, or it is writing, but that is craftsmanship. Like in the writing process, you have these big, like I had the idea of revealing the paper on the wall in PJ's basement, and I had it and I was like, that is the best idea I've had in the last like 3 years. That is such a clever reveal and twist, of the scene. It changes the entire meaning of it. It means that he must have stayed up all night. And that says everything that's beautiful about parenting and this guy who's down on his luck trying to relate to his daughter, and he put in the effort to get his daughter's attention, and that's so lovely, and it was exactly the movie that I wanted to make, of like the things that you regret about your parents, you were a dick to them, and like they were just trying, and they were like you took them for granted, and all of that stuff that you feel as an adult. It was perfect. It was exactly the movie. But that is also a camera reveal. Like, we use the camera in both of the instances that you just cited to move the audience in a certain way. So with the gun reveal, the scene builds up from a wide shot, it's zooming in, and then it becomes this tight coverage of Niken and I shouting at each other, and then Bill, gets my attention by saying my full name. And then I say, "What?" And it's still close up, and then everybody's backing away from me, and then we cut to the wide shot and you realize I'm holding a pistol. And that is like a reveal, but it's using the camera to help tell the story. It's not necessarily just writing. It's like, oh, then we reveal that there's a gun here, and we do it in a neat way where and then the same thing with the hand slap game. It's like that just happened to be out of frame, and then we have the character move to the other side of the room and pluck it down, and it says so much about the thing. So like I do agree that in both of those instances, it is these discoveries inside of the craft of scene work, but it took me doing it in a private space for a long time to crack that code. Like, yeah. And when you do, that is some of the best moments of your life, of like, oh, this is going to be so great. And you get so excited about it. And then you're like, that's the movie. I think I just made the movie, and so, yeah, you have those moments, and they're rare, but it's like, for me at least. But yeah, those two, I think were just happy accidents of doing it 1,000 times. And then, I remember pitching the gun reveal to, Zach Parker on the phone, and he was just like quiet after a while. He was quiet for like 10 seconds. He was like, so now Jim has become an armed gunman in a parking lot. And he was like doing the calculus in his mind of like, will we lose the audience there? Like, will they be like, oh, I don't know, America and guns, is this an okay thing to do? Do we make him too unlikable? But you'd be so surprised in watching the movie with people. They sigh. They like gasp and then sigh. Like, oh, our poor boy, and it's like, this guy's a lunatic. He just slapped his partner and pulled a gun on him. Like, this is, it's like, it's okay to feel both ways about this dude. Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah, and I loved how much it reframed what I just saw for me. Is, you're experiencing it one way, thinking about it one way, and then you show this thing, the picture on the wall, the gun in his hand, and everything that just came before it for me as the audience member was just reframed in my mind, and I'm rethinking in the moment.
It's a punchline.
Yeah,
in jokes,
and a magic trick like you were talking about before. Yeah, is really excellently done. And I think the gun is what really launched me into the monologue that comes next of everything that comes out of that character's mouth. I was connected to so much more.
I'm sorry if I committed a hate crime against level. You. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my God, that had me laughing so hard. So great, man. And their relationship, and then even the forgiveness that the character brought. Anyway, I could gush over that for all day, but talking about the characters, how are you keeping all these characters' voices different from each other? Or are you thinking about that? Are you putting yourself in the different shoes, or is casting the big part of that? Do you do character Bibles? What's your process for those characters?
I'm really bad at that stuff too. Like, apparently the Safdies will like force the people to be in character like for weeks beforehand. And like, I remember hearing a story that like Ben and Robert Pattinson were like writing each other long form letters as if they were in prison and like in character, and like all of that stuff is like helpful, I'm sure. And like, I love their movies, and I love the realism of the characters in those films. I'm really bad at it. Like, I see, it's like Hitchcock or something. I see these characters as like plot devices, and like, I need this thing to happen, and so because of that, these people come, and then like we just do great casting. Like, we cast people who bring that stuff to it. Like, I got to work with Ricky Lindholm on the Werewolf and Virginia Newcomb on the beta test, and I was like, I could write something for you. Like, we had scripts, we had everything, but it was like, you're gonna know how to demean this guy better than I am, and like, I think that could be an interesting thing. Like, and if it sucks, if it sounds good coming out of my vocal cords, but it doesn't sound good coming out of somebody else's, then let's find our own way to do it. Like, it doesn't have to be the script. It has to be real, I guess.
Yeah. So do you find that there's a lot of improv on set then? Do you encourage that?
With Thunder Road, there's almost none. Like, and from the majority of our movies, there's almost none. It's like we kind of have to because we don't have any time. You never had any money to make anything. And so it's like, we kind of have to get what's on the script and then keep moving. So yeah, I mean, there's some moments of like, all right, for like this montage, let's like go crazy, and then we just need to get the footage and put it together. But for the most part, no, because we never have enough time that we need.
One last question on writing, and then I do want to get into directing, because that last question was a bit of a directing question. What about feedback when you're writing your scripts? Let's say the Werewolf specifically.
I'm really bad at feedback. I take it all as a personal attack, and it's funny to laugh at now. I must be the most difficult person ever, because I cite precedent all the time where I'm like, well, they did it in The Exorcist, or like, or like, oh, it's okay to slap a corpse because Dario Argento murdered people on film, and certainly that's worse. And it's like, it's a dead body, and it's a joke, and it's also not. It's a beautiful moment. He says, "This is for me and Crystal," and he kisses her hand, and it's lovely. And then he says, "And this is from Crystal's future husband and my mom," and that says the mom didn't like this wife. And also, Crystal's future husband is going to have to go through so much hell because her life is partially ruined because of this thing that happened. Anyway, all of that stuff, I'm really bad at taking notes, because I'm always like, well, this person did this, and that's okay. And like, I don't know.
What do you know?
Yeah. I guess in taking notes, I'll send it out to the producers, I'll send it out to the actors, I'll send it out to everybody. I also record it as a podcast and then put in music and sound design to the screenplay. And I'll do sometimes I'll bring in, if like for the beta test, PJ did his voice, but I usually do all the voices, and then I put in sound design and kind of clean it up and mix it and then send it to people, so they at least have a better idea of what I think the movie is going to be. Like I always say, it's easy to misinterpret a text message. Don't let somebody misinterpret a screenplay. Like tone is so important to our movies, and it's so easy to misread tone.
So I want to hear more about that a little bit. So with each script, you're doing almost a radio play with it?
Exactly. And then I can deliver it to the producers and say, it's going to be exactly 91 minutes. Like, that's helpful. So yeah, no, I do a radio play because, I heard about Peter Jackson shooting Fellowship of the Ring with Little Green Army Men, and like apparently did the whole movie, or maybe some of the big action sequences, but like shot it on like a mini DV camera back in the day to show off, to be like, yeah, now we just have to, plug Elijah Wood into this scene. And then like, but at least
just that was like we already shot it.
Yeah, exactly. It was like an animatic almost of a thing. And I was like, well, I don't know why people aren't doing this for screenplays. And then you can have so many long form conversations about screenplay format and stuff. And so I just wanted to be like, okay, no, this is the movie. And like, this is kind of how I'm imagining this person would deliver this line. And like, language and English is so complex and intricate that one syllable changing, the like enunciation of one syllable in a sentence changes the entire meaning of a sentence. And so it's like, in order to get the idea across, I think that words on a page are probably not the easiest when it comes to film. So I just recorded as a podcast.
Man, I love that. I'm going to steal that, though. I don't think it's going to work out so well for me because I'm not an actor. I do envy your acting chops. I wish I had them. But that actually brings me into you as a writer or a director and actor, which what is that like on set when you're the one in front of the camera performing, but you're also directing the scene? How is that process working?
It's a lot of me running back and forth, like to be in front of the camera and then behind the camera. But then I also have like, for the last few movies, I've had at least 3 or 4 producers who I trust with my life. And Danny Madden came on to do the creative direction on Thunder Road and Werewolf, so that if I'm in a scene and it's a long take and something goes wrong and I don't know it, like if we're getting somebody who shouldn't be in the shot, or if the sound dies, we don't have to keep wasting time on set. I have a bunch of qualified people to say, okay, no, we got to cut it. Like let's reset. And yeah, I'm very lucky with that. I have an infrastructure on sets of people who, like, when I can run into a video village after doing a scene and they're like, perfect, I don't think we need to do it again, let's move on. And it's not just me going crazy with my thoughts of, did we get it? So yeah, that's very helpful.
Does that go for performance as well, or any of them?
Yeah, totally.
Helping shape your performance.
Totally. And I can't count the times that I've left set, and then that sucked. Like, I don't, it's not working. Why isn't it working? Or like, and it's not just my producers too. I like my production designer, Charlie Texter, who I worked with on like years ago. I started working with him on the Lil Dicky music videos that we were doing in North Hollywood. And now, like, he's so funny and gets it when, like, he knows the script just as much as anybody else. Like, for the beta test, there were times where the scene wasn't working, and I go, "Where's Charlie?" And like, found him like, "What? I'm supposed to be angry here. Why is it not coming across as angry?" And he's like, "Yeah, because you're not going to take this shit." And then he would just like amp me up, and like, it was just great. It was like, yeah. So there's just this wonderful team of people who like just get it and know how to get good footage, and it becomes this process of I don't know, communal endurance of like, we're all like, everybody on set is allowed near Video Village. Like, there is no above the line, below the line. If somebody has a good idea that's going to make the scene better, let's put it in the movie. It's going to make it better. And so like, everybody's able to watch the footage. It's an entirely open editing room. Anybody can, it isn't now because the coronavirus, but we used to just edit it at our offices at Vanishing Angle, and just everybody that wanted to could come in and watch the process.
That's great.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And like, we learn so much in how to make the movie better because so many more people are interested in making it better.
That's awesome, man. And with you in front of the camera as the director, do you find yourself really honing in what the film will be in your prep for the film? Like, as the director, is there a point? Well, one, is there a point, because you're also the writer, that you're taking off your writer hat and putting your director hat on and looking at the script as a director? Or are both those hats just always on?
I think with writing, it's kind of done. So like, I'll spend a few weeks before we start shooting going through the podcast and the script and be like, is there anything you want to populate with this thing? Like, oh, this person brought up this good point. Maybe we have to like, rework this sequence or this scene. And so there's a little bit of that, but really we try and execute what the podcast is of like, whatever that clean version of the thing, it should at least be close to that. And we send it out to the cast and crew before we shoot so that everybody has at least heard the movie before we shoot it. So like, they all get what the movie is. So they get the script and they get the podcast. But no, I don't. I think really it comes to a point about 3 or 4 days before we start shooting with the last few movies where I go, okay, I have to kind of become the actor now, or like, I have to kind of become the director actor now. So like, I can no longer like kind of help out in locking down locations or like advising on wardrobe or things like that. I have to memorize lines, and like, I kind of have to rehearse with the actors and do the thing. And so, yeah, there are transitional moments. And then on the weekends, you go back to producing and helping and workshopping and spreadsheets and everything. Yeah, it's a weird thing. It's a very different process for me because I'm the writer, director, and actor of things.
Yeah. Yeah. All the things.
Yeah. Because I help out with all the things.
Yeah. Yeah. What about shot listing? Do you?
No, I mean, we do with the Werewolf. It was a different process. It was a cinematographer named Natalie Kingston, and her process was to go through every scene and talk about the emotion behind the scene and what the scene was. And then we would take these like extensive notes. It took about 3 days in Utah, and we just kind of understood what the movie was going to be visually. And I'd never done that before on a movie. And so there was extensive shot listing for that film. It's also an action film, so you kind of like have to do sequences, but we never do like, I never really go out and take pictures. I should, or do storyboards. Danny Madden did some storyboarding for the big action sequences in The Werewolf, and that was super helpful. We got to like blow those up and kind of cross them out on the days that we were doing the big action sequence. That was a lot of fun. But then working with Ken Wales, the cinematographer of the beta test, we spent like 3 hours going through the scenes and just laughing about it. And like, I have a pretty good understanding of lenses. I'm like a lens guy. And so when we're on set, he and I would kind of talk about how we're going to cover the moments. And so we kind of go through the Rolodex of the different Panavision lenses that we got to work with. And, we kind of like shouted at each other of like, 27? Should we go with 27 on this? I was like, yeah, maybe 35, like that kind of thing. And so it was like, shot listing was more like, okay, we're in the space. This is where the camera can move best. Let's lens up and go for it. But like, yeah, like the rest of it is like, the cinematographers taking notes in our meetings and being like, I think we're going to cover this scene in a oneer, and like that kind of stuff.
Right. So you're very collaborative with your DPs as far as how the scenes are covered then.
Yeah, oh, extensively. Yeah. Like, I must be a nightmare. Like at a point, there are moments where it's like, I just need an executor of this thing. Like, it was a shitty thing to ask Lowell Meyer to do for the short film, because Drew Daniels shot the short film of Thunder Road, and then we had to reshoot it for the feature because the actresses who played my daughter and my wife in the short film were Italian and French, and so they didn't have Texas accents. So we had to reshoot the short film. And to do that, it's like, well, all of these jokes are already built into the short. We just have to nail each one of these moments, the reveal of the cell phone, moving over at the right time to reveal the daughter. All of those things were punchlines that were already established. And some of it is that, where it's like, all right, well, Jim and PJ know, exactly how much time we need for this joke. So the camera has to move at this speed. Like, it's all rigorously thought out beforehand.
Man, that's great and really interesting. So you didn't shot list Thunder Road or beta test, but you did do a shot list for the Werewolf, right?
So we do shot listing for the Thunder Road feature. I did that over the phone with Lowell for like 5 hours, 6 hours, something like that. And then but then you get to the location and it's like, I think we can do this in a oneer. And it's like, or like the location is too small. How do we get these 5 shots in this space? Let's cut it down to 3. It's like there are all these things where you have the best intentions of all the plans that you made months before, but yeah, it's like sometimes it just doesn't work practically.
Yeah, I feel like just almost all the time the plan never quite works out, but it's a nice like backbone to have of there was an original intention. So how else can we accomplish this intention?
Yeah.
Shifting to, back to acting a bit, but not as far as you as an actor director, but working with other actors. I'm really fascinated to hear how that process is for you, because as an actor yourself, you have that additional insight of what that feels like to be that person in front of the camera. So how do you find your relationships with actors as a director is, and what do you find the process with, helping them get the performance that the scene wants? What do you think, you found has been most beneficial?
Yeah, again, I'm really bad. So like I line read all the time. I give out a podcast of how I would do the performance before, and then that becomes like a base layer for the actors to then elevate. So it's like, all right, well, I know how he wants to do the scene. This is how I think the character would do it, and this is how I think it's stronger. But I think that there is a right way to tell a joke. I think that it's very easy to fuck up the enunciation or the inflections. When a word is in italics, it has to be in italics, like if you're going to deliver it as a joke. So like I am a bit forensic when it comes to that, and so because of that, I do a lot of line reading where it's like, actually I think it's like this. And then to do, like, as an actor, whenever anybody line reads to me, I get to go, oh, thank God, I finally understand what that meant in the script. Like I think it's very easy to misinterpret lines on a page. And so we just talk about it a lot. And like a lot of the people like that we work with are on the level, and it just becomes this funny performance thing. I don't know. Like, I don't know. When it's an emotional thing, like working with Virginia on the beta test was so incredible, and she just gets there. So there's moments where she like screams at me in the movie, and there's nothing you can do to direct that. It's like, just mean it and like, just go for it. And so like every moment working with her was a dream of like, oh, this is someone who you can just turn the camera on and they're incredible. Like they're so on it. So yeah, I don't know. I think it really depends. It's just the set life for us is very much like a summer camp. So it's like, if I'm playing a clown and I get to do the bit and it makes people laugh, then people want to compete with that, where it's like, okay, cool. How do I elevate this? How do I make this funnier? How do I make this more dramatic? I don't know. It's a bit like a traveling acting troupe rather than like a much more serious conservatory acting program, I guess.
Do you do a lot of takes?
When we can, yeah, sure. I mean, obviously the opening scene of Thunder Road, we shot it like 18 times, and then because you have to, and then I don't know. Sometimes you just get it. Like I was working with Jimmy Tatro on the Werewolf, and almost every time it was like within one take, I was like, that's great. Like that's exactly what I was going for. And then I felt bad where I was like, I think we got it. Let's move on. And the people were like, you insane? That's one shot. Let's do it a couple times. Like, all right, let's do it. Let's do it a couple more times. Like, yeah, he was one of the actors that I just love working with. He was just such a pro and nailed it every time. Yeah.
Yeah. There's no greater feeling than when you just know you got the shot. But then I also have so many times where we finish up a scene and I'm like, did I get it? You know?
Yeah.
Do you ever feel that way where like the day ends and you're like, what did we do today?
So the first 4 days, so The Werewolf was my first big studio movie, and I didn't realize how it was going to be on set. I thought it was just going to be, easier than Thunder Road because we had so many people. And that's not the case. My producer, Ben, always says making a studio movie is like taking an aircraft carrier to the grocery store. And it's so true. It's like, it's just so much to do, and so many things just to move. And that was working at a pace that I was not used to. So there were times that was the first movie that I had to be okay not watching playback on, because we just didn't have time. We had to move to the next location. And so That's terrifying as a director. But then my buddy Dustin Hahn was the assistant editor, and he was doing an assembly edit of the movie right next door to me. So I could stay up all night and watch footage that we got that day. So yeah, it was a very different process. There are times that I have that of like, did we get it? And then sometimes you go, no, we didn't. So we have to shoot it again tomorrow night.
Yeah, that's tough. And that's where ADs are just like, lifesavers.
I agree with you.
Shifting things around.
I agree with you.
And the Werewolf is Orion Pictures, right?
Yeah, we were very lucky.
How did that one come about? You said you had the script already, and it was Thunder Road that kind of had that come back about. Is that right?
So Orion was looking to do smaller budget horror movies, and we went in that week with XYZ Films, who did Mandy, and we're good friends. We met them at South by, and like it was just this kind of natural progression where it was like, well, we really want to make this werewolf movie, and like this is it's basically another police story. It's like Thunder Road with the Werewolf, and I was like, I think this could be a lot of fun to do. And then before we knew it, it was like, all right, yeah, start acting like you're greenlit, because you're basically greenlit, and let's find a place in either Utah or upstate New York to shoot it. And then we shot it in Utah, and it was like, I moved out January 3rd and was there until April of last year making the movie. We were extremely lucky. The executives over there are incredibly cool and like our age and down to help lift, the majority of the props on the set when, we don't have enough time to get out of the location. It was like very much a family environment. It was great, man.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
To get that, was it just the script they responded to and you went, or did you have to put together some decks, some mood boards, anything like that to kind of hammer it all home?
I built a deck, which was basically just a bunch of like David Fincher stills and and then like a werewolf
like
at the end.
Every deck I make.
Yeah. But legitimately, like I'd been trying to get that production made for a year and a half. So like I really wanted to do it. And I was also talking to different like digital companies to potentially make it into a web series that then you could break up into episodic, but then we could re-edit it as a feature. I was trying to get like any way to make this thing because it was so cool. And then it got to a point where it was like, all right, I think they're going to let us do it. And then they read the script, they loved the script, and they gave notes on the script kind of, reasonably. I think we had like 6 months out from shooting the movie, and it was like, all right, cool. And then they were like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go make a werewolf movie. And it was so wonderful. It was like and the whole time you're making the thing, you're like, is this really happening? Am I really able to make a werewolf movie? Are they letting me do this? Like, okay, let's murder somebody in the snow, and then get blood everywhere. It's like a Dario Argento daydream that I would have as like a 14-year-old that this would be my life. Yeah, man. It was cool. We are incredibly privileged and incredibly lucky that we were able to work with those guys.
That's amazing, man. So that's it for today. A huge thank you to Jim for taking the time to chat with us. If you want to find out more about Jim and links to his other works and his social media, you can find that at filmriot.com/podcast. Find the episode page for this episode. We'll also put up a link for an article he wrote about Hollywood and coronavirus. So definitely check that out. Of course, you can find me online at twitter.com/Ryan_Connolly. And until next time, don't forget to write, shoot, edit, repeat.